So this is part two. I think I ended off uh, leaving LA. So let's begin. Okay, so we decide to walk all through LA and go up to the train station again, freight train station. And we walk in and we ask, okay, where's the next train going east? And it's apparently going to be going to Tucson, Arizona. So we say, okay, we'll take that one. And so we jump on, and knowing that we're going to be going through a desert, the Southwest Desert, whatever it's called, we decide we better get something to eat or something like that. We don't really know how long it's going to take. It seems like it's going to take a while. So anyway, we are in the train yard, and it's dark out, but there's train lights on and everything and lighting. And we see these big train canister type things, and they have what looks like potatoes in them, huge ones. So I climb up the side of it, and I throw a couple down to my buddy, and we figure, oh, that will get us through. We can only carry like 4, so 2 apiece, and they're pretty big. They're like a size of a football, not a soccer ball, but a football, one of those, or a rugby ball almost size, just a little smaller than that. So there we are. I climb down, and we get on our train, and we're like looking at these items, and they aren't potatoes. When we try to cut into one, it isn't a potato. So we realized that it was a sugar beet. So here we are, we're taking off, and we're zooming off. We go to sleep, and we wake up anyway, and it's hotter than heck out. I mean, it is really hot. And here we are. We're not in a boxcar, because we figured we would die in a boxcar, and we were kind of told stuff like that might happen. So we didn't want to be in a boxcar, so we're underneath some freight trucks that are just the freight parts of them, the boxes, and they're loaded on top of these flatbeds, train flatbeds. And the sun comes up, and we're out in the middle of the desert, and the train is poking along, and I mean just poking along. It usually you try to get on trains that are just going to go 100 miles an hour and go to where they're going. Well, this truck, I guess we found out later that they had to do that. They have to do that to keep it cool and everything. And every once in a while they would stop, and we'd be sitting out in the middle of the desert just baking. And I've never felt anything that hot ever in my whole life, so it was really bad news. And we're dying of thirst and getting parched, and the train stops outside this town, and we see this from far away. I see this little house, and I go, oh my God, I wonder if they have water. So we jump off the train, knowing that the train could just start up and take off without us, which we don't want to have happen, but we have to get some water or something like that. So we rush over to this place, and I turn on the spigot. There's a spigot outside of their house, and this like brownish water comes gurgling out of it, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to drink this. No matter how thirsty I am, I just don't think this is going to be cool. So we figure, let's go over to we see a gas station. And so we go running down to the gas station. We can still see the train off in the distance. And we run over to this gas station, and we ask this guy, we had like 40 cents on us, and they had a Coke machine out there. And the Coke machine, the price for it was 50 cents. So we were like a dime short. So we're asking this guy if he could front us a dime, just to get a Coke, and he said no. And so we're pleading with him, and then all of a sudden we kind of hear the train start up and lurch, and we said, oh, sweat. So we had to run. So we ran back to the train, jumped on as it's just pulling away, and next thing you know, we're back out in the desert in the sun, and we're hiding behind the wheels. You can't touch anything because it's just so hot. I mean, all this kind of stuff. But anyway, so, well, we're in trouble. So anyway, we're thinking we're never gonna survive this. And the heat was just so intense. And apparently they slow down and stuff like that, and do that to kill off the bums on the trains like that. And a lot of them will fry, in the boxcars. And we were smart enough not to get in a boxcar, but then we were open to the elements, which was just about as bad because the air wasn't very nice. It was very thick and very, very, very hot. So it wasn't cooling or refreshing at all. So finally at night, we get into this town. We start seeing lights off in the distance, and we realize, it's a big city. And so we jump off the train before it gets into the lot, and we go walking into downtown Tucson, Arizona, which is, I guess it's about 10 o'clock, 9 or 10, and the place is like dead. And we're walking down the street, and this guy pokes his head out from a restaurant, and he goes, "Come in here." And we're like, okay. So we go in, and he goes, "Where are you from?" And blah blah blah. And we said, "Okay, we're from Connecticut, and we're heading east again." We told him our story, and he said, "Oh, you hungry?" We said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay." And so he made us up some Mexican food, and piled it on, and I guess it was all the leftovers from the day, but we didn't care. And we usually go into restaurants and would ask that. We would see before they closed, we'd say, "Oh, do you have stuff that you're throwing away?" Because we could eat it, and all that, so you don't just toss it out in the garbage. And so anyway, he told us about Tucson. He was telling us, "You better get out of town." He goes, "They don't like people drifters that come in to this town. The cops don't like them, and they'll beat you up and all that kind of stuff." So we were like, "Oh, okay." And he was telling us that the reason is like gangsters took over the town, and they kind of run the town, and they have their own rules, and the cops are all bad, and everybody's under the gun, as it were, and especially if you're from out of town. So anyway, so we leave there, and we're hitchhiking along, and this guy pulls over, and he says, "Oh, you want to ride?" And we said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." So we go with him, and he's all drunk and everything. He's like a drunk Mexican, and it was kind of funny. And he was telling us all about his wife and everything. And finally, he got home, and luckily, because he was swerving all over the road, and we were like pretty scared, I'll tell you. So there we were, outside his house, and we decided, I don't think we're going to go in. And so we said, "Okay, well, we'll see you later." We took off, and we walked off into the night, looking for the train station. And we finally found the train yard, and it was all dark and dingy there. And we asked people what train was going somewhere and all this kind of stuff. And we were just sitting there waiting for it, and all of a sudden these cops roll up. So they make us stand up, they pat us down, and meanwhile, one of the cops is kicking me in the ankle, and right in the bone with his steel-toed duty shoes, whatever you want to call them. And he's kicking me in the ankle, and I'm not liking that. He's trying to piss us off, I guess, and then so they could say we were resisting arrest or something like that. And I had a pocket knife on me, and he pulls it out of my pocket, and he goes, "This is mine, okay?" And I said, "That's stealing, that's my father gave me that." And he goes, "Well, it's mine now." And I was like, "Okay, bummer." So anyway, meanwhile, he's just standing there, and they're kind of just talking to us, and about like for us to get out of there and go. And so we're like, okay. There's trains pulling in and trains pulling out and stuff like that, and he's making us wait. Meanwhile, he's kicking me in the ankle every once in a while, and my ankle's starting to hurt by now. And I'm thinking, if he kicks me much more, he's really going to hurt my ankle. I won't be able to walk, and that's what he's hoping, I guess, or I'll get angry. And so I did the opposite, and I just started walking towards the trains, as it was just pulling out of the yard, and it was going to be a long freight train. And I just jumped up in between the two trains, and he's yelling at us, "What are you doing? Get off that! Get away from that!" and all that. And I just jumped up on it because we'd done this so many times. It's, I know people get killed all the time, but took my chance. I jumped up on it and walked across through the linkage and jumped over and jumped out on the other side. And my buddy followed me real quick, and there we were on the other side of the tracks, and we just started running, and we took off down the road, and figuring that once the train went by they might come back after us and try to get us for some reason, I don't know. So anyway, he didn't, and we got picked up by this guy, and we got taken out of town and dropped off, and we slept somewhere I've forgotten. And let's see, okay, all right, this is where the drunken Indian Mexican guy picked us up. And then he picked us up, and we went up to his mom's house or whatever, and we said, I don't think we really want to stay. And so that's when we left there, actually. So then after that, we just kept on walking. We walked all night or something like that. Oh, and we were walking along, and this guy picks us up, and we're thinking, okay, great, this is awesome. It's the next day, actually, because we slept somewhere at a KO campground. We used to just sneak into campgrounds, and then we'd steal the food out of the hampers that the campers would leave outside in their coolers at night. And we could take a shower and everything, and people didn't know that we weren't paying customers and all that. Nobody asked, and so we were just there. And so anyway, so the next day we woke up, and so we get this ride from this pickup truck stops by, and we're out on the open highway in the middle of the desert and going to Phoenix, Arizona way. And it's getting pretty hot and everything. But anyway, these cowboys pick us up, and one guy's driving and the other guy's drinking in the front, and they're just kind of getting reckless. And the father, I guess, was the guy sitting in the passenger seat, and he passes out. And it's the son driving, and he's driving like 110 miles an hour down the highway and passing people and all that. I just closed my eyes, and I'm sitting in the back going, okay, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die today. And it was a wild ride. It was kind of scary. And we just clung on and stayed close to the sides of the pickup back, So finally, I see a cop pull up behind us and pulls us over. So they take the guy out, and he says, they go, okay, you're drunk and all that, and they give him a ticket and all that, and we say, oh, can we drive the truck? And the cop goes, no, you can't. You're not allowed to drive the truck. And we were like, oh, come on, we haven't been drinking or anything. And he said no. And so he made the other guys take off, or he took them with him or something like that, and just let us go. So we were just walking down the highway, and we were walking along, and it started to get dark, and we're, I don't know, maybe 60 miles from Phoenix, and it's getting dark, and we're walking down the highway, and not too many cars are going by, and if they do, they're doing 90 and all that kind of stuff. And I said I wasn't going to do that. I'll try not to do that anymore. So we are walking along, and we're thinking, this isn't very good. We obviously can't just have sleep anywhere because of snakes and other things like that, and we're out in the middle of the desert. So this cop comes by, and he starts talking to us and all that, and he says, what are you doing? And we told him, and he goes, do you have water? And we said no. And he goes, well, that's not very smart. We said, well, we just got dumped off here, because we told him the story. And he goes, I can give you some water. So he gave us some water, and then we go, oh, can you take us to the nearest town, or at least, or to, somewhere where there's people? And he goes, no, can't do that. It's against the law, against the rules. And so we're like, oh no, this is bummer. What are we gonna do? So anyway, we're going along, and then
The weather's looking good today. Up to 79 degrees and partly sunny.
I must have said something that my iPhone just answered me. So anyway, so we're out in the desert, and this guy picks us up, and he says he's a preacher, and he's heading off to Phoenix. He goes, yeah, I'll take you up there, and he's giving us all this talk about the God and all this kind of. And we're good at talking about God and everything like that, so we're talking with him, and finally he drops us off and lets us off, and we get to Phoenix, and it's nighttime. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and we're walking along into town, and we see this bar and restaurant, so we go, all right, well, we got to get some food and some water and all that. So we walk in there and do the normal thing. We walk up to the owner, and we go, is there any food you're not going to be eating, or whatever you're throwing out, or you could give us, or we could work for you, we could do the dishes or something for a meal. And all of a sudden we hear, hey you, and there's these, we turn around. Well, I never turn around anyway first, so I just let people, because I don't do that kind of thing. So anyway, they're going, hey you guys, over here. And we're like, finally turn around, realize, okay, time to turn around, and there's this bunch of guys and girls over by this pool table, and they're obviously all friends, and they got these pitchers of beer on the table and everything, and they go, come on over here. And we said, all right. And so we came over, and they said, where are you from, and all this, and we said where we were from and what we were doing and what we were looking for, and they said, oh, we can feed you, no problem, and we said, oh great. And he goes, but they said, here, have some beers, so they go, we're going to be going home pretty soon, and we'll feed you there. So we said, okay. So we hung out with these guys, and they seemed all pretty nice and everything, and the party type. And so next thing you know, we loaded into these cars, and we drove off, and we went to this house. And we go into this house, and there's all these people in the house, and there's just a fridge load of beer, and just every shelf was beer. And in the bottom shelf there was like a good 20 pounds of hamburger. And so they started making us hamburgers. They just said, oh, make some hamburgers up for you, And so they started making up hamburgers, and I'm noticing that there's people on the floor sleeping under chairs, just everywhere, and there's other people up, and other people are just wasted, and so we get into talking about stuff, and we're getting fed, and we're feeling really good, and they're breaking out the weed and everything else. And where we found we were at a commune, and this was the first time we'd come across one. So it was all these people that put in their social security and stuff like that, monies, and they just rent a house, and they just hang out and party all the time, 24/7. One guy was telling me, he goes, oh, my buddy, I haven't seen him in 4 weeks, because when he's passed out, his buddy's up, and when he's passed out, he's asleep, whatever. And so they never got to see each other for a long time. But so we were like, okay, this is weird. So finally, it's getting really late for us anyway, and I kind of just find a place under a chair, and I just always like to have my head under a chair kind of thing. It kind of makes me feel safe. And so I'm just lying there, and party's going on. So wake up the next morning, party's still going on. Now there's different people I hadn't seen yesterday, because the other people were up, and the other people that were last night are all asleep. So we're like talking to them and everything. So we stay there for a couple of days, and we're thinking, this isn't the kind of life we want to live. I mean, this we're not doing anything. It's just partying, partying, and partying. And so we say we got to leave, and they kind of, they didn't like the idea, but they said, okay, well, here, if you're gonna leave, you got to take this. And we said, okay, whatever that meant. Oh, some weed with you. So we figured, okay, they're gonna give us some joints or something like that, or a bag of weed, you know. And so they did give us a bag of weed. They gave us a brown grocery bag full of weed, all the way to the top. They could hardly close the thing. Stuffed it in my backpack and said, okay, well, see you guys later. So here we were. We walked out the door, and it was early in the morning. It was about 6 in the morning, and we're walking out, and we got this big bag of weed on us. So we get around the corner of the house. I stop. I take the bag of weed out. I put it right next to the house, and we take off, and we just go. So we're walking down into Phoenix, trying to find out where the train station is or anything, because we'd never been there before. And we're sitting on the side of the highway, and there's no cars coming by at all. It was so early, I guess. And so we're like, and the sun's starting to come up. It's already pretty hot. So next thing you know, we're sitting there for about an hour, and we have our little piece of bread and some peanut butter. And all of a sudden I start feeling pretty woozy, and next thing I know, I kind of like pass out. So next thing I know, we're at this clinic, and they're pumping me full of saline and all this kind of stuff, solution and everything. And next thing I'm drinking water and drinking like a fish. I was so thirsty. But apparently I'd passed out from heat stroke or whatever. And they wanted to keep me in the hospital, and I said no, because we don't like to stay anywhere with people. So I said, no, I don't think so. And they tried to insist, but I said no, we're not going to do that. And so they gave me some salt pills, and we found a gallon jug, and we took off. So we're walking up this highway, and we realize nobody's walking at all. Nobody walks. They just drive to the door, get out, go into the store or whatever, and then they come out again and jump in their cars and go home. And nobody walks around it. And so we're the only one walking around. We see this gas station, so we go in and we go, hey, do you have any water? And the guy goes, yeah, we got some water we could give you, and it's tap water. And so we just pour it into our gallon jug, and we take off. And we get up to this highway, and we go, okay, this is the highway, and it's going up to Four Corners, up towards Flagstaff. And so we go, because we're heading towards Colorado now. So we're sitting on the side of the highway, and this car goes by. Oh, it's funny. One thing we noticed was all the old people drive faster than the younger people. And it was just a weird thing to watch. But so anyway, that was just a weird thing. So we're sitting on the side of the highway, and we've got our thumbs out, and every time a car goes by, we're on a ramp, and you're not supposed to be on an on-ramp. And the cops don't like that, and they'll tell you to get off the ramp, which they did so many times. And so anyway, we're sitting on the ramp, and cars are going by, and this one car comes by, and this guy yells out the window of the passenger side as he goes by, and he goes, hey, here, and he throws me a joint, and it lands at my feet. So we had a joint to smoke. So we were just sitting there. Well, I was smoking it because my buddy doesn't smoke. So I smoked some of the joint and everything through the rest away, and I'm just got a nice good buzz going. It's nice and super duper nasty hot out, and got a gallon of water and everything. And finally we get a ride. So we get a ride all the way up to Flagstaff, and we get out. And then we're thinking, okay, well, we got some bucks out of that too. So the guy gave us like $5 or something like that, the last guy. And so we're thinking, oh boy, let's get like a milkshake or something. So we're thinking, okay, that's what we're gonna do. So we go into this I've forgotten what kind of place it was. I mean, it was a milkshake type hamburger joint, and we go in and we get a milkshake, and we're just, oh, it's just like, it's the best thing we've ever had in a year, or 3/4 of a year. It just doesn't get any better than that. So we're sitting there, and we get out, and we're walking downtown, and these Indians come up to me, and they're like, "Who are you?" and stuff, and they go, "You're an Indian, aren't you?" And I say, "Oh yeah, of course," and told them what tribe I was. Well, I didn't even know what tribe I was. I just knew that I was in Chippewa. So, anyway, this girl all of a sudden comes down the street, and an Indian girl, and she's like, "Leave them alone," and we're like, thinking, what is this all about? Because things were getting kind of hairy. There was a bunch of them started to show up, and they were kind of harassing us after a bit, kind of, and we knew things were going to escalate somehow because it wasn't sounding very good. So they were going to mess with us. So anyway, this girl comes up and tells them to go away and leave us alone, and couldn't believe that. That was kind of nice. So we take off and we're hitchhiking, and we're like, okay, we're here. We could just go over to the Grand Canyon from here. And so we decide to jump on that road. So we're hitchhiking on that road, and we get a ride pretty soon, and we're in the back of this truck with all these other people that were on that road going to the Grand Canyon too. And apparently this guy worked there, and he could get us into the Grand Canyon for free and stuff like that. So we were all, happy about that. So we get there finally. We stopped at a favorite pond off the road in the desert area that they like to swim at, and so we took a plunge, and everybody kind of cooled off, and then we got back in the truck and took off, and we went to the Grand Canyon. So he's telling us that the kind of rules and stuff like that about the Grand Canyon and what you can do there. And apparently you can rent out your backpacks for $50 a day to the tourists, so they can go down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and come back, and they have a backpack. And then you can work. If you have $50, you can sign up to work at the Grand Canyon for as long as you want. So we were thinking, oh, this is great. We're gonna have a great time here. So we go in, and we walk over to the rim, and it's getting nighttime, and we're sitting there, and we're sitting outside this bar that's pretty close to the rim, and these guys come out, and this one guy's like, "Hey, come on over here," and we were talking with him, and he brought out beers and ordered more beers, and we're sitting out on these picnic tables drinking beer, and there's these girls and this guys, and one of the guys go, "So where you camping?" We said, "Oh, we don't know." And he goes, "Oh, I'm off. See that forest part over there? I'm over in there." He goes, "If you want to come over later, and I got some food if you want." And I said, "Oh, fantastic." So he breaks out this granola with M&Ms and raisins and nuts in it, which was awesome, and trail mix type thing. And so we stuff in as much as we can because we're starving to death all the time usually. So next day we're figuring out what to do and walking along. We don't go down to the Grand Canyon. We're just walking around and seeing what's available and everything. And there's these free buses you can just ride around, so you can go to further down the Grand Canyon rim or up the rim with this buses. So we get on and we ride down to this other part and this lookout area, and so we're sitting out there, and we're sitting kind of back from the edge of the rim in this pathway where all the tourists are, and just kind of sitting up on this hill, and we're looking down on them. We're about 12 feet up, and we're listening to the tourists, and it seemed like everybody looked at the Grand Canyon for the first time in their whole life, and they said, "I thought it was bigger than that," and we couldn't believe it. And as the days went by, it took a while, because when you get to the something that magnificent and humongous, your mind just doesn't take it all in. That what you're looking at is 12 miles across is the closest part, and you can see across the Grand Canyon. And then when you look down, you don't realize you're looking a mile down into the canyon, a mile down. And when you look down, you can see a desert plateau that is way, way down there, maybe 3/4 of a mile. And you look down, you can see these little dots. If you really look hard, and you realize those are people, and that's 6 miles of desert they have to walk along to get to the next rim, which is further way down there. And then they go down to the Grand Canyon bottom, which is like, I don't know, I've forgotten exactly, 500 feet or something from there or something. So we're sitting there, and everybody's making these stupid comments about, they take a picture of it and they go, "Oh, okay, well, let's get out of here," and they take off, and they're all disappointed that they thought it was bigger. What it does is it takes about a week before your mind actually starts to get to understand how big this place is, and how deep, and everything like that. So, how do we feed ourselves? Well, the best thing to do is to hang around tourists, because when they finish their food, like they go into this grocery store and they get sandwiches or sandwich meat and fixings, and when they're done, they would see you sitting there, and they would send their kid over, or they would come over and say, "Hey, do you want this?" And they'd give you the rest of their food that they didn't eat, and drink and everything. And so we would be super happy every day. We'd just go down when it was meal times and hang out and sit at this picnic bench, and pretty soon somebody would come over, and or they would send over their kid or something with some money and give it to us. And then they would say, "Oh, my mom said to give you this," or something, and we'd go, "Wow, fantastic," and we'd kind of wave at them and everything. So we had no problem eating, and we spent our days wandering around the canyon and all that kind of stuff. So one night we're out there, and we're next to this bar again, and there's these guys hanging out, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" and all that. And we're hanging, when they go, "We want a drink," and they've got like this bottle of tequila, and one of the guys is just slugging on it, and the other guys are kind of partied up pretty good too. And so we take some good wallops, and we're feeling good and everything. And there's this rim view of the canyon right there, and there's this one fence that's up, and it's just iron bar type stuff. And this kid, he's standing on the other side of the iron bar, and he's holding on with one hand, and he's leaning back, and he's doing all that, and he's drunk as a skunk. And pretty soon some security comes out, and they're like, "Oh man, you got to get off there, people get killed here all the time, they fall off." He's going, "Oh no, I'm not gonna get killed," and all that. And anyway, so his buddies finally told him, convinced him not to do any more. So that was one fun night. So we're at the supermarket place, and we're sitting in there. Oh, okay, so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we look up, and there's two people coming at us. And the funniest thing were with these two people, we knew these two people from Connecticut when we were at this drug rehab type midway house type thing for delinquents and everything. So anyway, we didn't like these two guys either. It was really bad news to meet these two, and I couldn't believe it. Out in the halfway across the United States, here we meet these two, and they're on their way to California, and they're like, how are you surviving and all that kind of stuff. And we said, well, we don't have any money. We don't, we told them all this kind of stuff. And we just couldn't wait to see them go, but it was horrible meeting them. It was just really weird. So they had this big hotel there, big Lincoln log hotel, fantastic place. And so we'd walk in there during the days, and we'd go get tea bags and tea biscuits and everything that people would leave on the trays, after their breakfasts. We'd just walk down and steal them off the trays, or if we'd see an open door, we'd just walk in and grab whatever we could, any condiments there were. So we'd do that, do the old hotel, and we'd hang out in the place all day. So anyway, it was a month went by, a month and a half actually, and we were like, well, it's time to get out of here. So we take off, we start walking, and it's nighttime. We don't have any food or anything. We hear about this party going on and somewhere out there, and so we can hear this party off in the woods. And so we go trucking down this through the woods, and we see all these people partying, and it's a pretty big party, and looks like they have a big vat full of ice and beer, and they were cooking steaks and everything. And so we said let's go over there and see what happens. And so we walked over, and this lady goes, "Hey, you hungry?" And we said, "Yeah." So she made us up steaks, and we were drinking beers, and there was watermelons and the big fire going on, and they were singing and dancing, and it was just a great old time. It was apparently the party for the employees. They like to do every week. They go off in the forest and go party. So we're just having a fantastic time, and we get up in the next morning. We leave the party before everybody actually left, and we go off into the forest, and we go sleep, and we figure we're safe because we can hear. We're near that, and it's just off about 100 yards away, and we're in the forest. So anyway, we wake up the next morning, and the fire is still cooking a little bit, and there's these boxes lying around, and there's these watermelons, and they were in cold water, and so we helped ourselves to these boxes, which were chips. And so we stuffed our bags full of chips, crisps, and where we took off, and we grabbed a watermelon, a big, huge watermelon, the biggest watermelon we could carry, because we figured, well, at least we'll have something to eat, and we'll get thirsty. We're going to be thirsty again. So we take off, and we get a ride all the way back to Flagstaff, Arizona. And next thing you know, we get another ride, and we're off in the going up towards Colorado. And this time we get dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and at this bridge where this guy decided he was going to leave us. And we were like, okay. So we're walking along, and we're at least got the watermelon, so we cut off pieces, and we're eating them, and it's kind of sticky, and it really doesn't help you. They might call it watermelon, but you don't get much water out of it, kind of thing. And it makes your mouth all sticky. So we're pretty bad shape, and it's hot, and it's the desert area again still. And we're walking by this bridge, and we see this van down by the water. So we go down there, and we go, hey, do you have water or anything like that? And the guy goes, yeah. And so he helps us out and gives us water, which was, like I said, after the syrupy watermelon, water was really needed. So, all right, so I won't bore you to death on that part, but that was fun. We got to meet this guy, but he was going the opposite direction, so it wasn't going to help. So we get back out there, and we go hitchhiking again, and pretty soon we're we get picked up again, and we get picked up by this girl and a guy, and they seem nice people, and they were. And we found out that they were people that go help and try to get people out of the phone's ringing right now. Hold on a second. Okay, so these people help children get out of cults, and they're reading these books about it to us, and they're explaining what cults do and how they have to detrain them and all that kind of stuff. And so we're like, oh, this is pretty interesting, but we're not into cults or anything like that. And we totally, I mean, that kind of stuff just is really stupid. We're too strong for that. So we didn't have anything to do with that. And they eventually drop us off. They go, oh, Silverton, we'll drop you off there. So we said, okay, great. So they give us some money and buy us a pizza, and then they take off. And so we were like, wow, we're gonna eat big today again. So we're eating pizza, and we got beer, and we get our bread and our peanut butter and jelly, because that's what you always have to have. And we get a pack of smokes, another pack of rolling tobacco for a couple dollars, and it usually lasts us about 2 weeks. So we're happy as anything, and we're walking downtown, and we're thinking, okay, where are we going to sleep and everything? And so all of a sudden the sheriff comes up beside us, and he's like, hey, where you going? Blah, blah, blah. And we're like, well, we're just passing through, and we're just kind of trying to find a place to sleep. And he's telling us, well, I don't really like people sleeping in my town. Just, he goes, I'd feel better if if I knew where you were. And we said, okay, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I can take you over to the courthouse, which is also the jail. And we said, he goes, I can lock you in there for the night. And we're like, okay. And he goes, no, I don't mean I'm going to lock you in the jail. I just, I'll just leave you in there for the night. And then at 7 or whatever, I'll come by and open it up. So we said, okay. We went for it because, he sounded all right. So he brought us into the courthouse, and all the doors are locked everywhere else except for this foyer and the jail's cells and everything. And it's all lit up and everything. So there's, you can sleep in the jail beds. So he just leaves us in there in this nice place, rustic, pioneer looking place. And we hung out, and we thought about being stupid, but we didn't, because it just felt so cool. And it was kind of neat to have law enforcement talk to us like that. It was kind of pleasant to do that for us. So we get some sleep finally. We get up the next morning, and he's like, okay, there you go. And he lets us out. So we're walking along, and we're looking downtown, and we're talking to people here and there. And at 9 o'clock every morning, a train comes rolling in, and it's a steam engine train. And it's a beauty. And it comes up from Durango at the bottom of the mountains, and it comes up into the mountains into Silverton, this town, and brings up all the tourists every day. And then they leave at 4. So we're like, there's nothing happening. I mean, there's only, I don't know, very few people who live there. But then all of a sudden the town is all bustling with tourists. So we're sitting there, and we're wondering what we're going to do, and we're looking at the mountains and everything. We see these mines up there, and we're like, wow, let's go gold mining. And we're thinking, then we could sell it to the tourists. So we go taking off to the mine that we can see, like, up this mountainside, and it doesn't look all that far. So we're walking and walking and walking, and about 4 hours later, we're still walking and walking and walking. We're not even at the bottom of the mountain to where it goes up to the mine that we can see up there still. we walk and walk and walk. Pretty soon we realize, wow, we're way out of town. I mean, and we're still walking and walking and walking. So we get up to this mine maybe about 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and we're beat because we probably just walked maybe 15 miles to get there, which, like I said, the place is so vast, we had no idea how big it was. So we're at this mine, we go to bed. Next morning we wake up and we decide to go into the mine, but we know that there's mine gas and stuff like that, that you don't want to go into a mine because all of a sudden there'll be no air and you can die, or the place could collapse. And we didn't have any flashlights or anything like that, so we went in as far as we dared. And if you turn around, it was so weird because you'd be just going down into this mine and making sure that it didn't just like drop off, and you could just kind of barely see. But when you turn around, you could see the little mine entrance getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and pretty soon it was way dark in there. And we decided, okay, let's get out of here. So it was kind of really scary. But anyway, so we get out and there's all this slag outside the mine, which is left over from the mining and everything. And so we start cracking open rocks, and in these rocks we find gold, and we find gold in this other stuff that looks black. And so we gather up as much as we can carry, and we head down the mountain. The next morning, actually, we stayed there all day and did that. And so the next morning, we're bashing rocks against rock and everything, and cracking these things open, and digging through this massive piles of slag or whatever it's called. And then, so we get back into town, and it's the next morning, and we're sitting there waiting for the train to come in, so the tourists, and we're looking at our gold and everything. And this guy's talking to us, this store owner, and he's like, wow, he goes, so what you doing? We're selling. We go, oh, we're selling these rocks and everything. He looks at him, he goes, oh, you can how you can tell gold is that if you lick your finger and all that, or lick the rock, whatever, the gold part, if it tarnishes, then it's not gold. So we were like, oh, so what is this other stuff? And he said, oh, that's iron pyrite. It's fool's gold. And so we had not a ton of it, but quite a good bit of it, and it all looked really nice anyway. And then we had this black stuff that was in the rock, and we didn't know, but we found out later that that's silver. Silver is black. So we were sitting there, and this tourist comes up, and they were every once in a while, and they would buy a rock here and there. And then all of a sudden, we were sitting on this other place, and this the store owner goes, oh, I got to kick you off the property. And we said, oh no, why? He goes, because of insurance and other stuff like that. And he said that I got to do that because I've forgotten exactly what it was, but there was a good reason. So we said, okay. So we're just about to move, and this guy comes to us and he goes, hey, how much do you want for all of that? And he just purchased a piece or two, and apparently he found out that it was gold in the pieces we were selling, and the other one was silver, and he wanted it. So we gave him a number, and I think it was like $15, which is just is like, it's like gold to us, because we, if we get like 20 cents, we're happy, So we had $15. I couldn't believe it. We got bought out by this guy, and we were really happy. So we decided, okay, let's get out of this town, because otherwise we'd have to go up to that mountain again, and there's no way we're doing that. So we're in this. My shoes are falling apart totally. I mean, I'm practically wearing bare feet. There's holes in the bottom, and I had gotten these sneakers at Salvation Army like maybe 4 months previous, because my other shoes wore out, and we went to this place and they just gave us some shoes. They said, "Oh, here's a bunch of shoes. Pick whatever fits you." And so I found this pair that fit me, and that's what I had on. So, but they were worn out, and my feet were really gonna start getting torn up if I didn't do something. I mean, I was putting cardboard in the bottom and anything I could do and stuff just to keep me going. And we walk into this outfitter's place for campers and hikers, and there's this girl there, and we go, "Hey," and she goes, "Hey," and so we go around, we're looking at all these nice clothing and food stuffs, and I try on these pair of boots, just tried them on. I don't know why, but anyway, this girl calls us over to the counter. So I walk over to the counter, and I've got these boots on. And she's telling us, "Oh, where we are from," and all this. And she says what she did. She moved to this. Well, she was hitchhiking too, and she went into this town, Silverton, and she said she's been here ever since for the last year and a half because she liked it so much. And so she's telling us about the town, and she's telling us about this mountain that you can see from there. And we said, yeah, we tried to climb that. Well, not climb it, we tried to go up to this mine. And she goes, "Oh yeah." And she goes, "It will take you days to get up to the top of that thing." I mean, and you just don't realize the scale of stuff, when you're looking at it, how big the mountains are. So anyway, she gave us pointers and said, "Oh, you should go to Ouray," which is another town up the mountain, in the mountains, in the middle of the mountains, where all the tourists are, and artists and people like that. So she gives us some food stuffs, and we walk out the door, and I've got the boots on, and I'm thinking, if she says anything, obviously I'm going to say something, but she didn't say anything, so I just carried on. My feet hurt for the first 2 or 3 days in these boots, but pretty soon they just molded to my feet once I got them all wet and everything, and it was really, really just super. I've never had something so comfortable on. Really nice boots. Anyway, so we get out of there, and we get on the highway, and we get picked up by this truck, and he's going up the mountains, and he's telling us that he has super horsepower on this truck because going up and down the mountains, your cars don't last very long. Your brakes don't last, and your engines don't last, and your transmissions take a real beating going up these mountains. So he had this real powerful dump truck looking thing, and we rode up to Ouray, and we hung out there for a bit and camped out, and realized, well, this isn't the place we want to be. It was just all hot and sweaty there, and it was all like confined. It was right in the middle of this like valley of mountains, and it was really nice. I mean, just beautiful rocks and beautiful boulders and everything like that. And when I was a kid, we used to go to Colorado and go to Boulder, Colorado, and it's just something I remember, so I really enjoyed that. But we weren't going to stay, so we jump on the highway again, and we take off. Let's see, we're up to 54 minutes. So I think what I'm going to do is after this, there really isn't a lot left, but I'm not going to do it today. I think I got to go cook for Susan because she's leaving tomorrow. She's going off for 2 weeks to visit her mom, and I thought I'd cook her up a nice dinner, and I'll tell you what it is. I know it's nice pork chops and baked potatoes and string beans that I just picked. So I'm going to be making that up right now. But so we'll leave it there. I'm heading off. We're at Silverton. Oh, Ouray. We're at Ouray. and we're heading up towards Leadville, which is where the all the actors and actresses go, and musicians. Everybody hangs out up there. So that's where we're heading next. But I am going to end this and send it to you. So cheerio again.